You guys good to go? Get ready?
Yeah.
Right to go?
Yes.
Because we've got our next two speakers.
Great.
Okay, thank you. We'll resume after lunch. I'm looking for Shane Goodwin. Thank you, Shane. Come on up. Don't be scared. Shane, you've got 5 minutes and you'll see that you've got a timer on the clock up there. They'll ring a little bell if you go over. We've got a little bit of leeway, but not too much. Be sure to leave a little bit of time for some questions so we can interact. The floor's yours.
Lovely, thank you. Kia ora, everyone. My name is Shane. Firstly, thank you for taking the time to listen to all of us here and to go through the process. I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot of opinions, varying opinions on the topic. So I appreciate the work you put in on it. I'm a resident in Summerfield. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old dog, a Staffy Bulldog cross. My wife and I, we run a community planting group along called the Friends of Waimoki, which runs one of the tributaries that feed into Opoaho. So it runs down the back of Centennial Park. Excuse me. We spend a lot of time down in the park. We walk Sunny there every day around Summerfield, along the shared use tracks on through that area as well. From my written submission, you would have seen I agree with most everything that's been proposed, especially in the environmental sides. But there was one point I thought I would focus on today, which was 6.2.2. Which reads, dogs must be on a lead on all footpaths, shared paths and formed tracks in parks. So in an urban setting, I 100% agree. I'm a cyclist. I've had some close calls with dogs and especially long leads. But in a wider setting, going outside of the city boundaries up into the Port Hills, further afield, I think there's a bit of a balance trade-off there between the simplicity the council is after versus the joy of walking with your dog and your family. So as an example, day in the life, we will walk up Harry L track, Sunny on the lead, to Sign of the Kiwi, and then walk from there through to the Bellbird or further afield down towards Allendale. And that's a moment, those times on the second half of that is when there's a whole lot more joy for the dog. For me, I'm not being dragged around by him, he's not being dragged around by me. Daughter's running around. So I would hate to lose those options and opportunities. I think from a compliance and safety point of view, I've never had any issues. You very rarely see people up and out there. So I think it's worth considering other ways of achieving that simplicity. Things like a separate but still general rule for walking the dog outside city bounds under effective control but off a lead, whether further educational signage would be workable, although I feel the signage is actually pretty good, or even maybe just removing formed tracks or in parks from that clause. That may have impacts unwanted throughout the urban setting. But yes, to sum up, basically, the joy and companionship of having a pet, you know, it goes both ways, being able to walk with them, and they're not tied straight to you. I'd like the bylaws to facilitate that in an agreed, safe, happy way that everybody's aware of. And yeah, I think you've done a great job in general improvements across the status quo for this, but I think the balance in this one area is a little bit different for me. So, ngā mihi, thank you. Yeah, any questions?
Thank you very much, Shane. I think you raised an important issue about the differentiation between the urban formed tracks and the more remote ones, and you're not the first one that's raised that, and it's certainly up for us to consider. My colleagues have got some questions.
Thanks, Shane. Has your dog ever had interactions with cyclists, runners, other track users and things like that?
In that area?
Second question is, have you ever seen other dogs around behaving badly, like chasing stock or anything like that in the hills?
Chasing stock, no. There are some areas around Rapaki and up in Farm that, yeah, I could see that happen, but I haven't seen it. If you're talking out in that area, like rurally, no. it's very, we intentionally go further out so we're not disturbing anybody, etc. But even closer in, back of Victoria Park, through Harriel, I've never had any issues with that. He's actually very good around cyclists and others anyway.
So he's on a leash on around cyclists and
Most of the time, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Coming in, giving up your time. It's such a horrible day. I see that you don't support the leashes around the Ihutai Trust, Ihutai Estuary area.
Sorry, don't support.
No,
Yes, it does.
you do.
Does-
Oh, you do.
yeah,
So you do support the
definitely do.
wildlife in the bases.
Yeah, very much.
Must
I-
have read that wrong. Apologies for that. So that's good to have that clarified. Do you support the short lease?
Are you on the right one?
Shane?
235?
Yeah. Anyway, okay, that's good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I did have a small comment in there about lead length.
Ah, okay.
But
Yeah, look, I'll encourage you to read the officers' report that are online. There's one that details and gives us a summary of the submissions, but there's a second one that responds to some of the submitter issues that have been raised. And one of the options for us to be looking at is the use of a longer leash in certain instances and a retractable leash. So these are certainly things that we will be considering as we come up with our final recommendations. So thank you for raising those issues and
Lovely.
thank you for coming out. Thank you.
no, lovely. Thank you very much.
So Joe Fern. Welcome, Joe.
Thank
See how
you.
this works. Clock's running. You'll get a wee bell and a wee reminder when the part.
Yep, sure. So that's what I was waiting for. So yeah, kia ora, my name is Jo Fern. On screen here, we've got my two dogs. We've got Milo is the big one. He's a 9-year-old Kelpie Beardy cross, and Baxter, who is a Beagle Cocker Spaniel cross, and he's 4 years old. A quick confession, I actually live in the Selwyn district, and the dogs are registered in the Selwyn district, but we often walk in the Christchurch council. I want to thank thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I am a little bit nervous, but I will try and keep calm and carry on. I consider myself a responsible dog walker. When I walk my dogs, I carry with me this little bag, and in this little bag is my dog treats and also my poo bags. I pick up after my dogs, and I also sometimes pick up after other people's dogs because I feel that's part of good dog ownership, being a responsible dog owner. I also at all times carry my 2 dog leads. I use my leads when we are walking in urban areas, when we're walking along beside roads. I also put my dogs on a lead if I can see another dog owner coming towards me with their dog on a leash that's maybe nervous or aggressive. I'll put my dog on the lead then. I also put my dogs on the lead when we're walking through livestock, and also if there are ducklings or some other kind of bird that I'm concerned that there might be a negative interaction between my dogs and the wildlife. I walk my dogs twice a day, every single day, including this morning at 6:30 a.m. in the rain and the dark, because it is vitally important for their well-being to be walked regularly. And I see them walking them off leash as paramount to their vitality. They should be able to exhibit their natural behavior. They should be able to run and sniff and roll around and play and have a good time when we're out on the walks. As well as for my dog's well-being, it's also for my well-being, which is why I don't visit dog parks, because I don't want to walk round and round in circles in a dog park with my dog off the leash. So I do walk my dog off leash. Most of the other owners that I meet are like me. They are responsible dog owners. Their dogs are under control. They are not chasing wildlife. Unfortunately, there are a minority that let the side down, and I have been witness to that, but it is the vast majority of people that I meet that are like me and are responsible. I'm concerned that the changes in the bylaws are going to penalise people like me who are a responsible dog owner. My dogs are under control all of the time. I know where they are all of the time. I don't let them chase wildlife. And one of our favourite walks is that to Kuru wetlands now, and it would be such a shame if I because I wouldn't go there anymore. If it was dogs on lead only, I wouldn't be able to appreciate it and to be able to walk there with my dogs, because walking my dogs off leash is good for them and it's good for me as well. So I worry that having these restrictions are going to restrict people like me. Irresponsible dog owners are going to continue doing what they want to do anywhere. It doesn't matter how many signs you put up and laws that you change. An irresponsible dog owner is going to be an irresponsible dog owner. So the only person that you're going to be penalising is people like me and my dogs. I would suggest, Horswell Quarry is a place that we visit very often, and that is perfect. There are areas where dogs can run off leash. There are areas where there are no dogs allowed, and there are areas where it's dogs on lead. And I do visit that area quite a lot, and I think that works really well. And I think it could work well for somewhere like Te Kuru. There are so many tracks in there that you could have some that are on leash only or dogs banned, especially around the sort of waterways where you've got a lot of birds in there. But the outside tracks could be left as off leash and under control. And I think it's really important to stress that off leash, under control, be aware of wildlife, so that responsible dog owners like me who read the signs, okay, I'm walking into an area now where there might be birds, so I'll keep an extra good lookout. What else did I want to say? I support the restriction of dogs in very sensitive natural areas like the estuaries. I used to work for the Department of Conservation. I've seen the damage dogs can do to ground nesting birds and to wading birds, influencing their feeding habits and nesting habits. So I'm fully in support of dogs being banned from that area. And my final words really are, as I said, I walk regularly at Te Kuru. I also walk at some wetlands in Lincoln. I know it's out of your area. But my concern is you're looking to restrict me and to ask me to keep my dogs on a lead, and yet I regularly see cats in this area. Cats allowed to free roam from the neighbouring subdivisions are going to do 100 times more damage to the wildlife and to the birds in that area than my dogs would ever do, because my dogs are under control. So yeah, that's what I've had to say on that. So sorry, I was going to say any questions. Any questions?
Yes, Brian.
Oh, thank you. I'm just wondering, and I know that you're not in the Christchurch city, but you're out here. Do you have any ideas about cat control? Have you thought about how either council could control cats?
Well, the first would be to make owners register their cats, that they all need to be microchipped. I've lost count of the amount of cats on Facebook pages. Cats gone missing, cats gone missing, cats gone missing. Why have they not got microchips like dogs have to have?
Yeah, I'm sorry to you. I know it's not relevant, but I know
Aaron's and there are plenty of cat owners that are responsible cat owners, and you can get cat-proof fences that have an overhang. Some people have these little cattery things on the side of their houses.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd ask you,
especially in sensitive areas like that around wetlands. I think there needs to be more control. It's not fair.
The only other thing that you mentioned, possibly having some paths leashed and some not. But we would need signage.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about perhaps we ended up over-signing and ruining the look of an area?
Well, I mean, places like Te Kuru wetlands, you've got that lovely map at the start. That's a good one. Anybody that doesn't know the area, that comes there for the first time, that is a responsible dog owner, would look at that sign and go, oh, okay, so I can't go on that one. That one's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much for taking the time to
engage
with us.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
You're welcome. You've raised some important issues, and you're not the only one to raise some of those issues.
Yeah,
Cats seem to be a hot topic.
Thank you.
And there's lots for us to consider, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lisa Sturm. Hello, Lisa. Welcome.
Thank
See how this works? You've got 5 minutes.
Yes, that's good.
Including question time. Thank you.
Thanks. Lisa Sturm. I'm the director of the dog training business That Happens. I also am the director of the dog online store Kiwi Canine, and I'm a certified dog behavior consultant with the International Association of Professional Dog with the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, as well as an accredited accredited animal behavior consultant with Companion Animals New Zealand. I'm also a full member of the Association of Professional Dog Trainers New Zealand, and I'm also their vice president, but I will be focusing these 5 minutes on my own submission. More important, though, than all the titles and qualifications is that I'm a dog parent to 2 25 kg active dogs who I walk on a daily basis in different parts of Christchurch. So that means that I know the beauties and struggles of walking dogs in Christchurch well. I have great control over my dogs out and about, and just like most people, I get annoyed when other dog guardians do not control their dogs. So that's why I'm very glad that the term under effective control will in future have a more solid definition. However, over the past 10 years that I have been operating in Christchurch as a professional as well as walking my dogs privately, I have noticed and actively commented on numerous times actually how the etiquette amongst dog people truly has shifted in a positive way. So when I walk my dogs off lead and I see another dog or scooter or pram or bike or similar, I bring my dogs under effective control. So that's either on lead or off lead, it's next to me. And over the course of the last sort of 2 years, which accounts for over 700 walks, I've maybe had a dozen dogs runs up to me because their guardians did not take control and responsibility. When I was here 10 years ago, it was a dog pretty much every walk. So when others see me bringing my dog in and bring my dog under control, they do the same with theirs on all my walks pretty much. And that's huge. And I'm every time really happy to see that. To be fair, I can't say the same about my beach walks. That seems to be like a free fall dogs for most guardians. But I can certainly say for my walks around the Christchurch Red Zones, Bottle Lake Forest, with an exception that I will get to, the hills, Heckley Park, and so on. Given how much the dog population in Christchurch is growing, that shows that the educational efforts from myself, my colleagues, as well as the dog control team of the council are taking effect, which is fantastic. We should be reinforcing that positively and investing more into those efforts that are noticeably working rather than taking away rights from the responsible dog guardians, which would be a huge step backwards. I have huge concerns about the suggested rule changes, as they will not only negatively affect how my dogs and I can enjoy our walks, but also they will negatively affect dog safety in off-lead areas and dog welfare in general. When I'm walking in the Otaka or even River Corridor, I will just call it the Red Zone, for ease, in the open fields with my dog off-lead, and I see another off-lead dog, I just change direction slightly and we can avoid each other altogether without even having to call our dogs in. Making these off-lead zones narrower will automatically mean that there's more dogs to less space and you have to pass closely every time, which is going to cause more risk for conflict, as well as simply making the walk less enjoyable. Essentially, with the proposed changes, we would be losing 2/3 of the red zone, and that doesn't even account for the fact yet that there's no guarantee as to how much lawn the council is planning on mowing, at what times, and how that may change over the next 10 years as well. If they mow less lawn, then the new bylaw rules would allow for less and less off-lead space for dogs. Not to mention the loss of water access, which is essential for dog welfare, especially in warmer weather. I won't go into too much detail as to how I've walked those areas in the past few months with the suggested rules in my mind and seen how the opposite of practical is applying when you're trying to stick to mown areas off-lead and not mown areas on lead, because you're constantly crossing from one to the other in reality, and it's actually making no sense when you look at it in practice. A more balanced approach, promoting responsible off-leash control and educating widely what that means in conjunction with the new definition of effective control, would better serve both dogs and their guardians as well as the general public. Do we need to address the few nuisance causes? Of course we do. It would be great if we could call animal control and have them actually show up when the issue is happening so that things can be addressed then and there. I understand, however, that it can take a couple of hours for an officer to get there, by which time, of course, the dog is no longer there. If the animal control team was provided with more resources, this could be changed. The lack of enforcement of existing regulations means that those who don't follow the rules may face no consequences, while responsible dog guardians would bear the brunt of the new restrictions, which is going to see no improvement to nothing. I mentioned an exception for Bottle Lake Forest earlier. Of course, the times where I see dogs not under effective control is when I see one person responsible for 15 dogs. So I'm well in support of regulations in that regard, and it is my opinion that one truly qualified handler can effectively control maybe 4 to 5 meticulously selected dogs maximum. Of course, the council will need to enforce the new rules with regular spot checks there as well.
Thank you very much. We are at time, but Councillor
short.
Barber's got a very short question, so I'd
Yeah.
appreciate a short answer. Thank you.
It's not often we get people who have had your kind of experience. If someone had an average dog
Yeah.
and you were to take them and train them
Yeah.
to be under effective control to an adequate level, have you any idea how long that might take and how much that would cost to do that for a dog?
When you say how much that would cost, are you saying that I would be doing the training or that I am consulting the client on how to train their dog?
Well, I'm just trying to get some concept
Yeah.
of the cost of taking a dog from an average dog from being in a situation where they could be effectively controlled.
Yeah, so given that we're pretty much just looking at leash behavior and recall behavior, it would be sort of like a life skills package that most dog trainers would sell, which is maybe around like $400 or $500. Of course, the onus is on the owner to actually do the work and do the training, but it's actually not. They're both considered really easy training topics in our field.
And how long would that take, do you think, roughly? Obviously, it depends on the dog.
It does depend on the dog, and it does depend on sort of the diligence of the owner. But I would say half a year is sort of a realistic time frame
Okay.
for getting to a point where you would trust your dog off lead.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. We're grateful to have someone with your experience and knowledge coming in and engaging with this piece of work and taking the time to share
I'm
your thoughts
actually
with us.
speaking again in 20 minutes for the FEDT&Z.
Okay,
then.
we'll
Yeah.
save some questions for
Yeah.
them. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Jamie Small. Welcome, Jamie.
Tēnā koutou, I'm Jamie Small. I live in Cass Bay, I work in the central city, and I take my very well-trained Border Collie Gecko almost everywhere with me. I want to thank in particular the last two speakers who covered something I won't cover but that I agree with, which is that bad dog owners are going to continue to be bad regardless of the rules. So any rules that are put in place affect us good owners more. I enthusiastically agree with the proposed measures to protect the Otakaro Avon River Corridor, the Ihutai Avon Heathcote Estuary, stormwater basins, other wildlife areas, and areas of cultural value and community gardens. I love the fact that our city is becoming more friendly to native birds and other wildlife, and I believe this should take precedence over dog walking rights. I also agree with the proposal to limit the number of dogs one person can be in control of, and I'm particularly impressed with the inclusion of an exemption process for handlers with appropriate skills. I'm happy that the default status of areas without specific policies is that they are off-leash under effective control. This is permissive and appropriate, I think. I do have a couple of concerns with the proposed policy, and these are all kind of underlined by this general philosophy. Christchurch is a dog-friendly city. It's a point of difference that we have, and I think we should do the mahi to keep it that way. Anecdotally, I know of people who have moved here saying that dog friendliness was a factor in their decision. I'm originally from the Waikato, but Ototahi is the place I love. It's my home, and a big part of that is feeling that I can take my dog most places with me. I believe in targeted solutions for the few problem dog owners rather than blanket policy that targets all owners. It seems to me that the easy thing to do is to impose stricter policies on dog owners rather than to create systems and methods and perhaps adjustments to the bylaw that target the few bad dog owners with the policies that we already have in place. I'm worried that a few things will slip through in this policy and that perhaps a few more will slip through in the 2032 review, and then suddenly the little intangible things that make Christchurch a dog-friendly city may be gone. In particular, I would ask the panel to reconsider the blanket leashing of dogs on shared paths, form tracks, wharves, and jetties. I know these are popular policies, but I believe that the support is partially due to the wording of the survey and limited other options presented. I think it's the perfect time to let my dog off and have a run around and sniff the trees when I'm passing through a park on a path, even if he ends up walking on my heel on the path half the time. It's nice to give him the option to choose if he wants to go and run on the grass. I think this is just a perfect place for dogs to be running around when you're on a walk. And frankly, in my experience, wharves and jetties are empty more often than not. Requiring leashing by default feels a little bit like a bizarre overreach. The community outcomes related to this policy are spot on. They state that the obligation is on dog owners to protect the public. I believe the existing policies regarding these areas, combined with the bylaw and good enforcement, already fulfill this. They allow the council to remove the rights of dog owners whose dogs are a nuisance. I just want to keep Ōtautahi dog friendly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fields.
Kia ora, Jamie. Thank you for your submission. So just in terms of, Cass Bay is not an easy place to walk a dog, and Littleton and by extension. So just do you have any comments about your experiences there and how difficult or easy it is?
Yeah, I do. So we've got two pretty good resources. We've got the Cass Bay Beach, we've got the walk from Littleton to Governor's Bay, and we've now got Steadfast Reserve going up in the Port Hills. All of those are on-leash dog areas, except the Cass Bay Beach, you can let dogs off leash in evenings and mornings in the summer or any time in winter. I would love to see those paths, the Littleton to Governor's Bay path and the Port Hills track that we've got become under effective control areas.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your submission and the thought that's gone into that. I was particularly interested with your comments about on heel. And I just wonder whether you'd had the opportunity to read the officer's report, the second report, where they give us some other recommendations and things to consider about the proposal, because one of the things that they're saying in there is to clarify that a person can walk along a path and their dog can be off leash and under effective control, e.g. the dog's walking on the green space alongside the path. So it's certainly considered that is still possible even with the formed tracks, and I'd encourage you to go and look at that officer's report, because there's some significant sort of loosening and relaxing of some of those proposals have been suggested, and it's this, you've raised some important issues for us to think about.
You'll see in my written submission that I was concerned about a lack of clarity around those formed paths. For example, if I was walking on the path and my dog was walking off it, does the dog have to be on leash? But it sounds like that is covered there, which is good.
Yeah, I'll encourage you to have a look at the agenda material for today, and from about page 97 onwards is a really comprehensive report from our staff that addresses some of the issues that you've raised. So thanks. See, they do read them. Perfect. And they do take on board some of the issues you're saying. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
Have we got Maria, please? Thank you. There is someone in before you, but they're not here yet, so you may as well jump the queue. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Maria. And this is my friend Canine Toby. We spend, Canine Toby and I agree that he should be on leash in certain areas. So where there's high public use, where there's multi-use places, and around sports field where kids are playing sport or there's sport games on. And we fully support that. Canine Toby and I, we walk about 1, 2, 3 hours a day, and we like to walk along the Heathcote River, we go to the local parks, we traverse across the Port Hills, and we often will climb to the Summit Road. We know our area really well, and we know where it is safe for Canine Toby to be on a leash or off a leash. And we work this out by knowing who's around, what time of days to go for walks. What Canine Toby and I don't agree with is the increasing restrictions on where we can be off lead. Schedule 1, along with leash restrictions, we understand where we cannot be, but it is really difficult to determine where we can be. And we're also unsure about the formed paths. If we could go to the next slide. So this is quite clear where we've got a gravel path that's been formed, grass at the side. The one on the right is a mown grass. We're assuming that the one on the right, we're allowed to be off leash. Next slide, please. Here we have again a gravel path. We understand quite clearly that we should be on leash there. On the right, on the left, a little bit unsure. Next slide, please. This path, actually, can I go to the next slide? That's right. And this one here where we've got a gravel path in one direction, a desire line in another direction, and a sealed path in another direction. So it becomes a little bit confusing where we can. We do recognise, though, that we've read the report and note those proposed changes that you've just mentioned, and we fully support that, especially the clarification about walking along the path with your dog off lead and not having to leash them if they cross over the path. We think there is a lack of provision for spaces for us to stretch our legs. Canine Toby and I are going to be impacted on a daily basis by the increased restrictions. For example, can I go back one, please? Coronation Reserve, where he will now have to be on leash as we go along this path. Now, there's only one way up, and that's on this path. And of course, we've got a steep hill on one side and a lower slope. So again, the proposed relaxation will allow me to walk the path while he walks through the bush or through the undergrowth there. So we do support that. Steadfast, HMS said steadfast, we believe, as this is a fenced area, it's not used for stock, that it should be under effective control. We think it's a great space where we can have dogs actively engaging in the environment. The other area are retention basins. Can I go on 2 slides, please? Okay, this is a retention basin we've been to ever since it opened. The mowing here has been random. Sometimes it's mowing right up to the edge of the rushes, and when we were there the other day, there was just a strip on either side. So while I can walk along the path now, if this goes through, and Canine Toby can walk on the mown area, I'm actually not quite sure he understands the difference between mown and the grass. Just a point I want to make. What we would like to see is some clarity of those definitions on where to be on leash. Sorry, I wrote this all before I read the report, so there is some clarity that's been provided. We want CCC to provide quality and safe spaces for us to be. Areas where Canine Toby can actually have a sniff, where he can have water play, where he can run. Fenced grassed areas, dog parks, don't actually fulfil our needs. We suggest that areas on the Port Hills could be opened up. There's a number of areas that have been fenced and are being retired from stock control. These would be great areas to identify some of them that we could have a dog under effective control in. Again, I've already mentioned Steadfast would be a great place. And lastly, retention basins. I think we need to look quite clearly at what we've got here and what we have done. We've provided great spaces for dogs. We have encouraged wildlife to take up home in these spaces, but we must acknowledge that some of these spaces have really, really high value, like Bexley, and that we should exclude both dogs and both humans. We should look at how we value those basins, and perhaps some of the lower value ones, ecological values, that we could open those up for effective control.
How are you tracking for time there, we're
I
fit over time.
think I'm over. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you, Maria. We are over time, but two of my colleagues have got their hands up for very quick questions. I'd appreciate a quick answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Maria. My is just a point of clarification, and thanks for mentioning Steadfast Reserve. So you're talking about the reserve above the HMNZS Steadfast, or are you talking within that space where the buildings are?
I'm talking about above
Above
the
just to
space,
yeah.
and I think it's quite clear. I mean, where you've got people, you put your dog on lead.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, my question, you raised an interesting point about retention ponds with sort of lower ecological kind of values. Do you want to just sort of flesh that out a wee bit? I kind of think I know what you're talking about because I live in an area with a number that are, there's quite a cross-section of...
Okay, so I understand Eastman Basin is a low ecological area. With these areas, what we've done is we have built them near residential properties, and of course these residential properties have cats, which are great predators. And you know, areas where you do have dogs going, you know, your wildlife's not going to really go there anyway.
Do you think we should have some basins where dogs are allowed, like
Absolutely.
in the water and
Absolutely.
all through? And congratulations on getting your dog up Mount Isabel. That's no mean feat. You know?
Thank you very much for
Lovely.
taking the time to engage with us and
you.
for coming in to see us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've now got Justin, Nicole and Teresa.
Thank you. Yep. That would be great. Okay. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. Head to Tails Limited provides dog walking, puppy classes, dog behaviour training, and mobile vet nurse services. We have 5 vehicles on the road Monday to Friday and walk about 150 dogs each week. Our staff is made up of qualified vet nurses, dog trainers, and dog behaviourists. We have no issue with requirements that dog walkers are registered, but in doing so, there should be some sensible rules around it. Professional dog walkers must be identifiable, both the person and the vehicle. Too often, private dog walkers are giving the professional dog walkers a bad name. Everyone just sees a dog and they assume it's the dog walkers who are at fault. Public liability insurance should be mandatory. They must carry a lead for every dog under their control. They can walk up to a maximum of, say, 6 unless they come from the same home. I believe, and excuse the pun, the council is barking up the wrong tree here. Dogs are not the problem. Irresponsible dog owners are the problem. The points we would like to raise as part of this review are as follows. It's all good to have restrictions on how many dogs one person can walk, but there should be some concessions registrations for professional dog walkers. We are the most responsible ones out there and have the most experience and knowledge when it comes to dog behaviour. Ensuring a dog is on a leash when walking on a path beside a road is just plain common sense. Do we need a rule for it? But bear in mind, people will not do it. The public hardly follow the on-leash only areas currently. There needs to be consequences for everyone who flouts the rules. When dogs meet, off-leash is the best option to avoid unwanted tension, as on-leash can quickly escalate and start a scuffle and fight. When meeting on lead, it is wise to apply the 3-second rule, a quick sniff, and then move away. If there are dogs off leash on the grass, chances are they will come over to approach dogs walking on lead on the path. Currently, council rangers are stretched too thin. For example, I've never seen a ranger walking the Rapaki track during lambing and dealing with the owners who have their dogs off lead, despite all the signs. There must be consequences to owners for their irresponsible behaviour. Remember, dogs can't read. Some consequences, something like a 3-strike system. The first one is a warning in writing, must be advised of what will occur if it happens. The second one is a fine, big enough to deter bad behaviour. And then the third warning is the dog is seized and placed in a pound, and owner can retrieve after paying holding costs. If not retrieved after 7 days, it can be put up for adoption. If the dog owner is not registered, perhaps a written warning and 7 days to get dog registered, or the dog will be seized. No dog understands the concept that one piece of grass is different to another, so expecting dogs to behave differently in different paddocks will never work. If you're really interested in making positive change to the dog world in Christchurch, here are some suggestions. Firstly, control backyard breeders. A lot of problem dogs come from people who breed irresponsibly and without any knowledge about the effects, genetics, and upbringing, especially the first few weeks of a pup's life, can have a dog. Make it mandatory to join a training class if you want a puppy, or at least for the first-time dog owners. In Germany, if you want to get a fishing license, you must go on a training course learning all aspects of fishing first. We are a professional company who would like to run more classes and educate more people, help train their dogs to become better pets and learn how to live in our society. But current council policy makes this very difficult. Community halls run by the council do not allow dogs inside, which means we are unable to run enough classes, leaving us with limited options. Selwyn Council does not have such restrictive practices, but it is too far for Christchurch Central clients to travel. This, in my opinion, is a big failing by the council. Most dog owners want well-behaved, well-socialised, happy dogs. There should be at least one available council-run hall where we could run our puppy classes. Turning more areas into no dog or dog on lead areas. We have no issue with this, as it would allow us to work with problem dogs. You would not believe how often it happens when we are not out walking our dogs, who we spend a lot of time determining who they can play with, to end up in situations where a member of the public has a reactive dog and just lets them off the lead, only for their dog to approach and possibly attack our dogs. I had a situation where a woman took her 2 children into the Groins dog park where her daughter was petrified of dogs. The child screamed, the dogs came to have a look, which made the whole situation worse, but who is at fault here? Dogs that are allowed on lead in a variety of very different situations where there is noise, people, other animals, ducks in the Avon River, tend to be better behaved and their impulse control is good as they have had exposure to many things. Taking these controls away from dog owners is detrimental as it limits areas where dogs can be socialized when they're young. We have so many under-exercised dogs with behavioral issues because there are only limited options for people to take their dogs and feel safe. Again, even in on-leash only areas, idiots letting their dogs off puts a lot of pressure on someone walking a reactive dog. Many of the issues noted would be mitigated if there was a better way to ensure irresponsible dog owners who breach the rules were held accountable for their actions, and this is where the change should be. To finish, we don't have a dog issue, we have a dog owner issue. Most owners take the time and patience to train their dog. It is part of their family and under no circumstances would want to see their family member get hurt. The real problem is the irresponsible owners who have no idea about dog behaviour and are ruining it for everyone else.
Thank you very much. We are on time, but we appreciate having people like yourselves coming in who've got a lot of experience and knowledge in the space. We've got a minute or two ahead of our schedule. So have you got a question there?
Yeah. In scope either, but your question about the community centres, is there any particular area in Christchurch that you would need to have a centre, or would you go anywhere?
So there isn't, I wouldn't say there's necessarily an area we need to have a centre. So St. Albans Community Centre allows us to be inside and have for a number of years now. But I understand they're run by the community, so that was what we were told. We have reached out to the Christchurch City Council community halls to run a second class, either in the Hallsville area or on a different side of town to make it easier for clients. And we've always been denied. And the more I ask, I just got told basically every community hall run by the council does not allow any dogs inside unless it's like a police dog.
And so St. Albans or Coinga you can because they run it themselves.
Yes,
Right.
so they're allowing us to be inside. They have floors similar to here. We have never had any issues with scratching or, accidents inside. Like we clean up after ourselves. Like I said, we've been there for many years.
There's quite a few that are run by the community now, though. There's Mount Pleasant, I think they run.
Okay.
Maybe we need to get you a list.
I'd be happy to look into those, absolutely, yeah. And then, the other halls we found so far was out in the Selwyn district, excuse me.
That keeps coming up. Selwyn keeps coming up today, doesn't it?
Yes, but I must admit that Selwyn district is now also putting rules in with no more dogs or less dogs. Like we inquired for another class to be run, and they told us we can't be on the carpet. Well, we currently run a class with dogs on the carpet, but our second class, because they had a change of management, I believe. So it looks like Selwyn is, tightening up as well. So in summer, we're all happy to be outside in public parks, or we've got a private field that we can run these classes. But you understand, in winter, daylight savings, bad weather, we can't really run them after 6 o'clock outside. It's just not possible.
If I could add that the actual demand for puppy classes and dog training classes is pretty big,
Oh, that's good.
but we can't fulfill them all because we just can't get the space to do it.
Thank you so much for that. Just, I asked another dog trainer the same thing, but how long do you think it would take to train your average sort of dog to a level of good control, and how much roughly do you think it would cost to do that? So
it really comes down to one factor, which ties into what we've just said. It is the owner diligence and how much they keep up to it. In all honesty, someone could spend $0 and they could be a very responsible and perfect owner, have the trust in their dog. I don't believe you can essentially put a value dollar on it. We do have, for example, though, we've seen our best situations have been people that have got in touch with us for pre-puppy arrival advice before they bring the puppy home. They are inquiring, what do I have to do? What should I prepare for? What should we? And then they go on to do puppy classes, teen pups classes, the adolescent stage, and they do dog walking with us. So they get like an all-inclusive package.
we work in the field of the law of averages. So can you just give me
It's not possible.
average number?
Yeah, just kind of a vague
training,
ballpark, a range. You know.
Yeah. For training investment for us, probably, or for the client, sorry, would be probably in $500.
Around that.
Then
Okay.
plus any additional walks they want us to take the dog on while they're at work, but
Yeah.
that's optional.
Recognising it's not perfect, but that's great. It just gives us a bit of an idea. And how long do you think? Every dog's different.
Again, comes back to owner diligence, but I do believe that every dog, it depends on which age you get them in. Puppies do go through a lot of developmental changes and stages. So there's one, 6 months, there's obviously early stuff, 6 months, a year and a half. So I honestly, a lot can change. You could say at 6 months, yes, I trust my dog, I can have them off lead. And then at 15 to 18 months, that could change again. So it's very, again, I know you like a number, but I probably would say, from puppy to adult, a year and a half.
Just one other question. Do you have any idea of the value of the dog industry in Christchurch?
The value.
Or just the whole industry, like pet food and all that sort of stuff?
Huge.
It would be huge, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
People are
People
happy to
want to.
invest.
People want to, as we pointed out, these are considered family members.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people they put a lot of value in.
I've allowed you a little bit of license there, Councillor Barber. We're just going to
Just
need to
one
wrap
quick,
this up.
if I could just think recent example that might answer that question. Our colleague at the weekend, they've spent $6,000 for an operation on their dog. When I asked him if he would spend the same amount of money on his cat, he said no.
I think we'll finish on that note. Thank you very much. And we really appreciate you engaging with us. Thank you. So I'm now running behind time and I'm about to jump back to Sheena Ross, who's in with us now. Thank you for waiting patiently there, Sheena. You've got 5 minutes. Off we go.
Kia ora koutou, ko Sheena Ross aho. Sorry, I was a little bit late. I work and had to dash between visits. I'm going to be less than 5 minutes. Yeah. I'm a dog owner. I agree, it's the owners, not the dogs. My concerns really about the changes are dogs on leash, on paths. I'm thinking of areas like Hanson's Park. If we put, if we have to, the proposal is if there's a multi-use path that dogs have to be on leashes, how do we manage dogs on leashes somewhere like Hanson's Park where it's dogs under effective control? If you've got your dog on the grass and the dog runs across the path, does that mean we're breaching that? It just basically means that pathway, that park is no longer suitable to let your dogs run anymore. I also have concerns that this whole proposal is all focused on dogs and not on cats. I agree completely that we need to be ensuring environmental sustainability and looking after birds and animal and wildlife. We all know that cats provide much more or create much more damage in that area than, and I'm not anti-cat, I'm just anti the fact that dog owners we pay for registration. I really like paying for registration. I really like the fact that people come round and check my house because I have 2 dogs. I think that's completely appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate that people with cats have no regulation whatsoever, and they breed and have many cats, and they, as I've said in my submission, faeces found in my children's garden, faeces found in my veg plot, and they kill a lot of birds, and we're the ones that have to be regulated. So I would urge you to think about regulating cats if you're going to regulate dogs. I think if there's a problem with dangerous dogs, we need to deal with the owners of those dogs, and we need to deal with the dog and not penalise all dog owners. I think this is very and what are the consequences? They're not exactly spelled out within the proposals, and I'd like to know more about what those consequences are for people and dogs. And I think the final, and the proposal doesn't talk about the incidents, and it doesn't talk about, I'm not seeing any research in there, and I'm not seeing any evidence in there about things. Oh look, I'm 2 minutes, I better speed up, haven't I? And one of the bigger issues I have is the limit on the number of dogs. I agree dog walkers should be registered, but I think saying that a single person can't walk 3 dogs is nonsensical. What about a grandma with 3 Yorkies? They say, she may not be able to, it's different to walking 3 Rottweilers, What about people, like if you've got 2 Chihuahuas and a Jack Russell, which dog do you have to leave behind? It's nonsensical. That makes no sense to me. I think if you're walking large dogs in multiple large dogs, yes, I agree that maybe should be dealt with, and there should be something. We have to register our dogs. So if you've registered 3 Rottweilers, let's talk about, how you manage those Rottweilers. Let's look about or other large dogs. Rottweilers are actually really nice dogs, but just let's talk about, I don't think that's thought through, is what I would suggest. And I think that's about it, really. I think I felt that there wasn't a lot of clarity about where we were allowed the estuary walks. I was thinking, does that mean we can't go south from Bridge Street, and we can't, I felt there needs to be more clarity about where we can and can't walk. And I agree, dogs can't read signs, and we need to be able to see better ourselves what's going on. Look, 49 seconds left.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, it was a bit rambly, but I was in a bit of a rush.
Thank you very much, Sheena. Can I suggest that you read the officer's subsequent report, which is available online, where they address a number of the issues that you have raised?
Do they talk about cats?
Cats, unfortunately, is out of scope of this.
Okay.
We're required to do this because of the Dog Act.
Right.
And it's compulsory on us to come up with a bylaw and a policy. So that's what we're talking about today. But your comments are not falling on deaf ears, and you're not the first person to raise it, obviously. So thank you for taking the time to engage with us, and you've given us something to think about.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Any other questions?
Council website's a very good source of information as well. Yeah.
Don't always have time to look at all of the different documents.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I'm just talking about general dog behaviour and ramifications of various things. It's all spelled out clearly.
But you do raise how difficult it is to balance it, and we often find ourselves in a position where we are drafting policy for the lowest common denominator, and we are hearing that. So it is very challenging for us to get it right in terms of which parts are general and which are very specific, and therein lies the conundrum and the difficulty.
And I think in terms of denominator, I think you're talking, I would suggest maybe word it more like who's got the most time and who hasn't got time. And many of us who, like I work many hours, don't have time to read all the council documents. So maybe when you're putting forward a proposal, you make it more succinct, make sure it's readable for everybody, because I've got a couple of degrees, I'm not a particularly low common denominator, and also like make sure it's it's rational and it's thought through, such as the 3 dogs thing. If you've got 3 small dogs, walking those is really easy, although sometimes small dogs can be bitey. But that, again, it's about the owner. But if you've got 3 big dogs, yes, there's a difference in that control thing, you know. So I think maybe how about thinking it, make sure it's consistent, thought through, and clear and easy to see, and not 15 different policy documents.
Thank you very much. Fortunately, we have made up time and we had ourselves a buffer built in. So now we're back on schedule. We've forgone the buffer and we've got Lisa again. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, hello again. So I'm now speaking on behalf of the Association of Professional Dog Trainers New Zealand. And we were honestly quite disappointed to see that we were at no point in this whole process approached to consult on this topic, even though it is our profession to know dogs and dog welfare, as well as day-to-day struggles of dog guardians and how to manage safety around public. When the survey was released, we contacted Animal Control Management with a letter of concern and the offer to help, to which we received no reply and continue to not be consulted. We have also been informed that Companion Animals New Zealand was not consulted either, and as far as we can tell, no other reputable dog organization was. It would be false to assume that public safety is not a top priority in our day-to-day work, as A, we're human and we care, and B, we're well aware that a dog who endangers a member of public would, under the Dog Control Act, be facing destruction. So not only are we aware of the challenges, we also have a lot of practice in navigating them, as well as the knowledge what dog welfare entails. It is therefore, in our opinion, a huge oversight to continue to not genuinely consult with us and instead allow us a 5-minute submission in front of a hearing panel only. We're still very open to be invited to have a seat at the table and discuss better regulations. Let me start off with saying that we fully support the implementation of limits on the number of dogs one person can walk at a time, and to ensure better control and safety, as well as new definition of under effective control. However, we have concerns about the planned over-reliance on increased leash laws as a blanket solution for general dog-related issues. Instead of broad restrictions, we recommend a more nuanced approach that emphasizes education, responsible dog guardianship, and community engagement. We would like to see more ethical considerations in the new bylaw. It is obvious to us all that physical activity is crucial for dogs, which the new suggested rules would actually make a lot harder. But also dogs need a sense of agency by allowing them a sense of freedom to explore the environment. That is impossible on a 1.5 meter leash. But it is crucial for their positive welfare, as well as it also reduces behavioral concerns such as aggressive conflict behaviors or barking and so on. Allowing dogs freedom to sniff and explore is vital for their mental stimulation and reduces stress and anxiety. So not only do we advocate against the increased on-lead requirements, but we are also strongly advocating against the definition of a short leash being no longer than 1.5 meter. It's frankly just way too short. Longer leads, like at least 3 meters, or long lines, 5 to 10 meters, offer dogs more freedom and control, which keeps everyone safe. Longer leashes and off-lead freedoms, when the dog is properly trained, promote natural behaviors such as sniffing, roaming, and interacting with their surroundings, which increases the dog's feeling of safety and satisfaction in line with the 5 domains model of animal welfare. If we wish to adhere to the guidelines in the New Zealand Code of Welfare for dogs, the promotion of effective off-lead freedom and the use of longer leashes will help enhance dog welfare and mitigate the risks at the same time. Excessive restrictions like stricter leash laws could exacerbate behavioral problems by limiting exercise and mental stimulation, leading to frustration. That is undermining the very safety these laws aim to achieve. Rather than implementing more restrictive leash laws, we advocate for prioritizing education about humane training and responsible dog guardianship to reduce behavioral issues. Effective education fosters a deeper understanding of dogs' needs, as well as teaching them skills needed to coexist harmoniously in public spaces. We recommend a well-rounded approach that includes maintaining more dog-friendly off-lead spaces, and we're talking the shared human-dog spaces rather than confined dog parks. That, alongside educational campaigns to address safety concerns effectively and engage the community in unbiased discussions about dog policies, ensures that regulations are practical and enforceable, and they also see more compliance and fewer conflicts between dog guardians and general public. By collaborating with dog guardians and animal behaviorists, the council can create policies that are considerate and protect public safety while also promoting the welfare of dogs. Essentially, what we're saying is that there's no need to reduce off-leash areas, but rather a need to ensure those spaces allow dogs to coexist under specified conditions, such as leash when necessary, define for guardians what the expected etiquette is, and teach dogs the required skills while enforcing those rules effectively.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of knowledge in there coming from you. I noted your comments about not being consulted. Do you know, is there a register of dog-related businesses?
The Association of Professional Dog Trainers New Zealand is one, and then there's the Companion Animals New Zealand. So the thing is that not all dog-related businesses are part of the Association of Professional Dog Trainers, because you need to sign on to an ethical code. And if you're not signing on to the ethical code, you wouldn't be able to be a member. But it is the most probably science-based organization that there is in New Zealand, those two, APDTNZ and CANS.
Well, thank you very much for coming in and engaging with this process, because it's very important that we do get the input from people such as yourselves. We're out of time for further questions. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
David Palmer.
The dog industry in New Zealand is worth $2.2 billion.
Well, there you are. There we are, David. You're a regular. You know how this works.
I do.
think.
Thank you,
So,
Victoria.
fire ahead.
All right, brilliant. So up on the screen, that's my old dog Lady. So she was a retired racing greyhound that my family rescued back in 2017, and she was with us until just a few years ago when she died of bone cancer. Retired racing greyhounds make like incredible pets. They're I often like to describe them as basically just cats in huge dog bodies. They sort of sleep all day. They're very, very chill dogs. And Lady was, a really amazing dog to have in our life. We would take her for walks twice a day in the parks and streets of our neighborhoods. So but racing greyhounds often come with some baggage from their life on the track. As part of being trained for racing, they're imbued with a really strong instinct to chase and kill small furry things. It can be trained out of them in some cases. A lot of greyhounds are not rehomed because they are perceived by the people who are rehoming them to not be safe around cats and small children and that sort of thing. Lady was okay, but she definitely did want to chase small cats and other small dogs if she would have been given the chance. So for that reason, she was kept on a lead whenever we were off our property. So we have a bit of a backyard that she was able to run around in when she needed to. But whenever we were out walking her, she was kept on a lead just because we couldn't really trust her not to see a cat in the distance and just be gone. If you've ever seen a greyhound racing, they're the second fastest land mammal. And if they see a cat in the distance, good luck running 45 kilometers an hour to catch up to them. I've been in that situation once, and I would not recommend it. She absolutely loved her daily walks. She was quite happy being on a lead. Didn't bother her in the slightest, and she loved going for those walks. They're not socialized very well at the track, so they're raised with other greyhounds, but they don't really encounter other dogs. And greyhounds kind of speak a different dialect of dog. It's kind of a strange thing, but just because they're socialized with other greyhounds, other breeds of dogs, particularly small dogs, used to freak out Lady quite a lot. She was a wee bit reactive with small dogs. Because they're bred for speed, their ears get swept back against their head. You can not really see it in this one, but normally her ears are right back against her neck. And in dog speak, I'm told that often is interpreted as aggression. And so actually quite often we'd have, if she encountered a small dog, the small dog would be pretty barky and nippy at her because I believe they were perceiving her as being a threat to them. So I could always control my dog, kept her on a lead all the time. But there were many occasions where I had to yell at other dog owners to tell them to put a lead on their dog or get their dog back under control. In all of those cases, the other dogs were just being normal, curious dogs coming over to have a sniff. But given that Lady was a wee bit reactive, it was an unpredictable situation. Dogs are animals. They can be unpredictable. So I was always, pretty nervous about her interacting with other dogs. And for that reason, we'd avoid her walking her where we knew there'd be a lot of roaming dogs. We took her to the dog park a couple times, and it was not a brilliant experience. So for the most part, we kept a muzzle on her if she was in that sort of space, but otherwise we just sort of walk her in the quiet streets around and parks around our house. I've heard a lot of comments from people that they're convinced that their dog is very well trained, would never hurt a fly, and therefore does not need to be on a lead. And actually, that's the sort of comments that I've heard from people when I've asked them to call their dog off. But the reality is dogs are animals. They can act unpredictably. And I think actually a lot of dog owners really overestimate how much control they have over their dogs. So for that reason, I do actually support the quite reasonable requirement that dogs be controlled on footpaths with a lead. I think that's a sensible thing. But I would like to also note, I did read the report that you mentioned today, and I think actually it strikes a pretty good balance. I don't think we should be completely banning people from having dogs off lead in public. I think it's an appropriate thing as long as the dog owner is doing a pretty good job. Yeah, happy for questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kewen.
I would love to get another one. We've got 2 toddlers now. We sort of upgraded from dog to child, but would love to get another one in the future. Yeah, we've switched to frogs in the meantime, so that's our new pets.
No other questions. Thank you very much for engaging with us on this and telling us a little bit about your dear lady.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Victoria.
Ashley, waiting patiently there. Come on down. You also know the drill?
I do know the drill. Can I drive this?
Yeah.
Please. Rightio. Okay. So, yeah, we're going to hit you with the cute photos straight away. First of all, want to introduce you to my 2 dogs. Hetty is a 12-year-old poodle cross and Ember is a 9-year-old Chinese crested. They're both approximately 26 centimetres at the shoulder, and they both weigh marginally over 6 kilograms. They're cats, basically. Apart from making them very cute, those statistics also mean we are limited where and when we can walk. So the point I want to make is that these bylaws don't apply just to German Shepherds and Rottweilers and Labs. They also apply to very small dogs. We walk most often in the Avonside, Dallington and Richmond red zones and on New Brighton and Waimari beaches. We don't go to dog parks because Hetty hates them, and also dog parks don't exercise dog owners. I was going to come in all guns blazing about the not being allowed to walk your dog off lead on the old roads and footpaths in the red zone. But I can see that particular one has been solved, and I'm glad that sense prevailed. But most of the submission still stands, so I'm going to continue because those roads and footpaths are going to disappear at some stage. And also some of this applies to other parts of the city as well. So these are some of the parts of the Avonside and Dallington red zone where we walk quite regularly. 1, beautiful, crunchy and frosty underfoot, firm, sunny skies, great dog walking. 2, not so great, and it's like this during all of winter. We can't walk there. 3, this is Dallington. As you can probably tell, the grass in the gutters is taller than my dog's. You probably can't tell that the grass in the field behind is also taller than my dog's. And 4, downright dangerous. You will see that there are grass seeds there. And I'm about to show you what happens with grass seeds. And I will just add all of these are part of the Moen red zone, okay, Moen grass areas. So in my written submission, I sent you a photo of Arlo, our neighbour and walking companion, and the 3 grass seeds that came out of his leg. This is Ember on the 27th of December, and the grass seed that came out of her foot. The grass seed is about 1 centimetre long. Her foot is about 2 centimetres long. And you probably can't tell, or you might have better eyesight than me, but the cost to me of that particular adventure was $563.19. So my point here is that you can't actually say that there are 200 hectares of land for dogs to walk on, when half of that land is underwater in winter, and in summer is dangerous for dogs because it's only mown once a month. You'd get much better compliance if at least during summer the mowing schedule allowed was often enough for grass seed not to form. I don't know what that schedule is. I suspect it's at least every 2 weeks. So what I'd like to see, I'm not going to read all this out because you're all able to read and digest yourselves. But what I will say is with about 45,000 registered dogs in Christchurch, that's 32,000 households. For most dog owners, walking their dog is the major exercise they get during the day. It's the reason I'm out walking for an hour each day. So it's also the main way they interact with nature. This isn't just about dogs, it's also about the people. And we need to get dog owners on side with conservation and restoration, not make them feel like it's getting in their way of having a good relationship with their dog and giving their dog the life they need. That's it. Questions?
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Ashley. Well done. So you're saying it would make a difference if the grass was mowed more frequently in the red zone in summer?
Absolutely, yeah. It would make a huge difference. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be the entire red zone. If we go back to there, 1 and 2, 2 is just down the hill from 1. Okay, so if you in Avonside regularly mowed the area up on the raised platform of Avonside, and your park staff will know where that is, so that it was constantly safe for dogs, then that would make a difference.
And also, you know, dogs in water, do they only go in summer? Because obviously I don't think your dogs would be walking in that. But would dogs, other bigger dogs go in there in winter?
Yeah, they probably would. I know that Ember quite likes wading through the shallow parts of a puddle. Hetty will stay away from it, but that's actually pretty deep.
Yeah.
And Ember won't go into the middle of that because it would be probably up to her shoulders. So, yeah. Yes, I have seen large dogs running through that, but small dogs can't.
So just in terms of the red zone,
Yeah.
if, you know, we've got 200 hectares,
Yeah.
you know, if we mowed kind of like a quarter of that in various places, would that be, you know, if we mowed that more frequently? I'm not sure we could do it all, but...
Yeah, no, you couldn't do it all, but, well, you could, but it would cost a lot. With the being able to walk off lead on the old roads and paths and footpaths, that makes a difference. If you then had regularly mowed areas that enabled a proper walk, like not just 10 minutes around the edge of it, but you could actually do a good 45-minute walk in a mowed area, that would make a difference. And no, it wouldn't have to be the whole lot, but it would have to be enough for a reasonable walk, yeah.
Thank you very much, Ashley. We've now made up time. We're almost bang on. Thanks for engaging with this process. We've got lots to think about. So we're going to adjourn now for a break for 15 minutes. We're back just after 3 o'clock.
Hi Pam, just checking you can hear us. Hi Pam, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Wonderful, we'll be with you in 1 sec.
Thanks.
Okay, well, we're being on time. I think we'll get underway. Hello, Pam. This is Victoria. I'm chairing here today. You've got 5 minutes.
It's very short.
Fire away.
Okay. Well, you've got my my slides there to help me along the way. And seeing we've only got a very short period of time, I'll just go straight to there. So can we go to the second one, or how do I deal with the second one? The second slide. So this is about the Pigeon Bay camping ground, which is in Pigeon Bay naturally. It's under a reserve management committee, or managed by a reserve management committee and a camping ground working with the Christchurch City Council. So I've shown you the estuary area there, and it's the camping ground is already identified as a prohibited dog area, and the reason is that it's for public hygiene, I think is what it says. So, and I noticed that a number of other bays they refer to the environmental issues as well. So if you move to the next slide, I'm just asking that it also refers to dogs are prohibited from mudflats and foreshore to protect wildlife values, birds feeding and roosting. And then it refers to you from Schedule 1, page 30 is where my submission is. That's the appendix that goes with it, what happens in each area. Schedule 1, page 30. I'm looking at it, dogs prohibited for safety in hygiene regions, and then from the roosting and other wildlife areas. But if you go to my submission, which is, I think it's got it there, I think was it about page 390 or whatever that page my submission is on. Part of it is the Stony Spit is also used as a high tide roosting site for variable oyster catchers, South Island pied oyster catchers, etc. These birds also roost and or feed on the mudflat embayment, a rare habitat type on Banks Peninsula, as well as fly to other shoreline habitats around Pigeon Bay. So I'm just asking for that it also includes that. And many of the other prohibited areas in Banks Peninsula have got those that it addresses the shorebirds as well. So and that's a photograph of the shore in the estuary area where there's oyster catchers, and that was just taken at Christmas time, or not Christmas time, in January this year. So yeah. So can you follow it? I'm sorry, my submission was last minute, and it's not really a full style of omission that I would normally put in, but I've certainly enclosed what Andrew Crosland has said about the area. All right.
Okay, thank you for that, Pam. You're fortunate that we've got the Banks Peninsula Councillor sitting with us here today, Councillor Fields. I wonder if you had any questions in relation to this, given that this is in your playground.
You're putting me on the spot, Victoria, but I did it. Of course, I've got some questions for Pam. Hi, Pam, it's Tyrone here. So thanks for your comments. So I just want to clarify, because on some of the beaches or many of the beaches around Banks Peninsula, you can
Yes.
have dogs off a leash.
Yes.
But so you're saying that where there are shorebirds and
Yes.
birds along the foreshore, you'd really like consider, regardless of where the beach is, you'd really like
Yes.
some consideration given to not
Yep.
allowing that, as it were.
Yes.
Like
Well, it's not the dogs.
The birds should come first, effectively.
Yes, that's right. Well, the dogs are out of the camp. No dogs in the camp. But if anybody was, a bit cheeky, they could walk down the bank and have dogs on the estuary area. So I'm just asking that you consider that as part of the camping ground plus the estuary area prohibited.
Thank you, Pam. That's clear.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the panel members? Yes. Pauline?
Hi Pam, Pauline here. Is it just Pigeon Bay you're talking about?
Yes, this is purely Pigeon Bay. Yes.
Thank you.
As it's referred into my overheads there, it just talks about Pigeon Bay. So have you seen my submission? It's Appendix 1, page 920.
Yes, we do have that, and you've given us some things to think about going forward, and the staff are here to look at that as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, Tanya Jenkins and Joe Davies, welcome. Hello, come on in. We can arrange another chair there if you'd like to sit up there. Welcome, Nook. Welcome, Joe. Welcome, Tanya. You're seasoned presenters, so welcome. Good luck. You know how this runs. You've got 5 minutes. Thanks.
Promote the environmental improvement of Te Uhutai, an ecological treasure within our city. The estuary is home to numerous threatened species, and in 2018, the estuary joined the prestigious East Asian Australasian Flyway Network, highlighting its international significance. While we support many aspects of the proposed dog control policy, we're advocating for stronger protections to balance recreation and conservation. Our concerns stem from documented evidence of wildlife disturbance from off-the-lead dogs and observed non-compliance. Before handing over to Tutahonuku Korako, who is representing the Ihutai Ahuwhenua Trust today, and our wonderful manager Tanya, I'll just draw panel members' attention to the percentage of submitters who supported the proposal for the estuary. At 70%, this is a sizable majority.
E mihi atu ka koutou e karakatira, mihi atu Councillor Henstock mō tō tiamana o te committee tūnei, mihi atu mō tō whare tūnei e te honona. Tutahonuku no kōrako, I'm here to support the submission by the Estuary Trust, and my role actually is the chair of the Ihutai Ahuwhenua Trust, Maori Reserve 900. So our trust actually fully supports this submission as well. Kia ora.
Thank you. And we are really here for a change, not to complain or have any issues. We just would like to thank you, and because we're super grateful to City Council staff members who have worked really hard on creating an update of the bylaw. And we really like to congratulate the City Council on recognising the importance of wildlife, as well as creating an environment where people and wildlife can live in harmony, and it's got to be possible. The limitations suggested to the dog owners will prevent a lot of confusion about the use of words effective control, because whoever I ask what that means, nobody can tell me what it means. It will help prevent the vast amounts of dog waste ending up in our waterways. When owners at the moment cannot see the dog when they're off the lead, when they are fouling, so they do not pick it up and it ends up in our waterways. Most importantly, it will help everyone to be able to enjoy our waterways, our estuary, our beautiful environment. At the moment, to give you an example, talked to an elderly lady a few weeks ago. She lives in South Shore, but she can't walk along the edge of the estuary because she's got a little dog, and said, I'm so scared when big dogs come running up to my little dog. I spoke to elderly ladies, sometimes they ring the estuary trust, say, what are you, as if we can do it, what are you going to do about it if those big dogs off the lead jump up on me and I fall, I end up with a broken hip? There are so many elderly people too scared to walk along the estuary at the moment. It's just so unfair. Charlesworth Reserve, we are there every Sunday afternoon to do weeding and planting to enhance that beautiful little wetland. Every time we are there, every Sunday, I've counted up to 14 dogs off the lead. We have seen, 2 of our volunteers have been attacked by dogs. When we sit there for an afternoon tea break, it is usually one of us will say, dog alert, because we can see a dog running towards us and go straight for the biscuit jar or the cake that we have there. And the owners think it's quite funny. When we try and talk ourselves to people, do you realize you may be disturbing the wildlife? You'd be amazed the language that is being used to us. I've learned a lot of English words that I never learned in school. So again, it's a bit unfair to people. We all like to enjoy the environment. When in terms of wildlife disturbance, I'd like to give you an example that happened on the 23rd of February, so very recent, when I guided a group of 182 people around South Shore Spit. They wanted to learn about the estuary and see the godwits before they leave for Alaska. I went there beforehand, yes, 1,600 godwits and about 1,200 oyster catchers feeding on the mud flats. Yay, this is going to be awesome. By the time we got there, there was an elderly couple with 2 little dogs that were running all around the mud flats. All the birds were gone, all of them. You can imagine how gutted all these bird watchers were. There were no birds to be seen. When one lady said, can you speak to the dog owner? I said, I have. I asked her if she could put the dogs on a lead. That this is a prohibited area. I was told in no uncertain terms, we can walk our dogs wherever we like. And that was the end of that. So there's no point waiting, because research has shown us it takes up to 45 minutes for those birds to calm down, de-stress, before they have the courage to come back and land on the mudflats to continue feeding. So that's not going to happen, because if you look way in the distance, there are 2 dogs right on the water line, on the mudflats, about 50 meters on the mudflat, on the water line. So these birds will not come back here. What that means is people miss out. More importantly, those godwits at the moment are having to feed like mad, because they're going to fly to Alaska, which is 14,000 kilometers. If they don't get enough food, they won't make the journey. That day, on the 23rd of February, they missed out on the day's feeding because of 2 little dogs and 2 little dog owners. Sure. Oh, okay. Yeah. Final word. We are really supporting what you are proposing. We're looking forward to the changes, as long as it also includes time of perhaps park rangers to, instead of cleaning toilets and cleaning rubbish bins at the moment, that they also have time to be out on the estuary and educate the dog owners there. Thank you very much.
Just a reminder that the issue before the panel today is about the regulatory settings for the policy and the bylaw, not so much the operational and the enforcement issues. I do have a question before I hand over to Councillor Barber. One of our submitters earlier today talked about the difference between protected wildlife and non-protected wildlife. Do you think we need to have a distinction between protection and not protected?
All wildlife is entitled to protection. Is that what you're looking for?
No, they were just saying in certain protected wildlife and other wildlife is not protected, and they just felt that there ought to have been a distinction I just wondered whether you had any comments on that.
Yeah, that's going to be extremely difficult because if you talk to Andrew Crossland, your ecologist, there are about 140 different bird species, of which the majority are protected. So to be able to make a list for people which ones are not could be quite impossible.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, and thanks for highlighting the overwhelming support that people have for prohibiting dogs on the estuary, and thanks for the collaboration between two groups who care deeply about the estuary and the area of wetland of international significance. Just if assuming that this does go ahead and a ban is placed on dogs on the estuary, what are your fears beyond that? What is the, I mean, you touched a little bit on having a ranger down there. What are your concerns about making sure that this sticks?
I think with good education, public education by City Council, but also with the help from us and the help from park rangers, I think people will understand. A lot of people do not understand the sensitivity of the wildlife. Once they know that, once we talk to some dog owners, they usually say, we had no idea about godwits. And they do understand and put the dog on the lead. Also, I think if there is opportunity for alternative dog-friendly areas implemented alongside this, there are ample areas where could be designated as dog-friendly. It doesn't have to be a full-blown dog park even, because it's really hard to say no to dog owners. Dogs are part of the family. We understand that. People enjoy taking the family and the dog for a walk and letting them run free. But there are other areas. As long as they are available, I think people will be happy to comply.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nook. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Development.
Thank you.
So I think we don't have Tim Newman here. So we'll move on to Dennis. Oh no, actually I haven't got Patrick, but I think I've got Tim.
Yes.
Hello, Tim.
Oh, ready. Okay. Yeah.
Come on up.
Yeah.
So you've been sitting here, you can see the drill. You've got 5 minutes, the
More or
clock
less.
started. Off you go.
Okay, hello. So I am Tim Newman. I'm not part of any community groups. I don't have any vested interests or anything like that, but I am one of a great many, I like to think, responsible dog owners. So I'm sort of the guy you are talking to en masse with these sort of regulations. I'd like to get across that dog ownership, responsible dog ownership and control is a culture rather than a series of abiding by rules, that it always has been. And I think it's really important to keep that culture engaged with what the council's doing rather than having it switch off due to tacky regulation coming into a system which is, and I know you've mentioned we're not talking about enforcement today, but the enforcement is not particularly visible. And so when legislation comes in that people don't believe makes sense, and I'm mostly talking about extremely tacky sounding rules like lead length and leashes on paths within wetlands and reserves, things that are just would be completely impossible to enforce even if you did have the resources to do it. Having regulations like that creep in will cause people like me, normal dog owners, to regard the rules as less and less of the rules and regard them as more and more of suggestions. They're already taken as suggestions, but by and large, responsible owners will be in control of their dogs as they always have been. It really isn't about what's written on the sign as to whatever park you're walking into or reserve, because everybody knows no one's going to be complying with those rules. If people want their dogs off, they're going to have them off because the enforcement just isn't there. And so everyone's going to be, whether their dog is on a lead or otherwise, they're going to be ready for dogs to be off. And everyone is just used to dealing with that. My point is, unless there is change in how the visibility, at least, of the enforcement is conducted, I don't think putting more legislation on top of what already exists is going to have much of a positive impact. And my fear is that if this more and more regulations are built on top of an already reasonably regulated system without there being a change to the visibility of the enforcement, then perfectly ordinary dog owners are going to be driven further away from engagement with those rules, and they're going to be, people like me are going to be just more and more reinforced to do things on our own rules, because the system that's being suggested we're being enforced by just doesn't seem to exist. Very specific cases, like you had these guys talking about the estuary, where a zone could be very specifically demarked and thusly policed, that would probably work. But blanket regulations trying to apply to every corner of Canterbury, reserves, wetlands, parks, whatever, that's where it gets a lot trickier. And if people see those rules suggested but not enforced, then I think they're going to have the opposite effect of people are going to get checked out further than they already are. And so having them on paper but not in practice is, I think, harmful to the culture of good dog ownership as it exists. And I know that's not a solution, but it's something that I hope that the council is aware of when they make these legislations against systems that already exist, is my point.
Thank you very much. And that really does highlight some of the difficulty that we have in setting and drafting policy, and well aware over-regulation can have that effect. Have any of my colleagues got any questions here today? Yep, Councillor Kewen.
Yeah. What sort of dog do you have yourself?
I've got a Rhodesian Ridgeback.
Right. And what's the reaction when you have yours out in these places from people?
It depends on the place and the person.
Right, but do you ever get, because we've had some submitters today come in who've been bitten by various dogs and they weren't your type of breed. One was a golden retriever and the injury was horrific. But but can you see the point of, as a responsible dog owner, the reason why some of the changes or guidelines, as you call them, are going in? And wouldn't most go along with guidelines?
I see the principle.
Yeah.
The disconnect really is in the visibility of the enforcing. I don't think I've seen a dog control officer in my life, and I walk my dog every day in the types of areas that we're talking about. It's not that the regulation is incorrect or wrong or not sensible, outside of a few needlessly busybody examples like lead lengths. And like leashed on paths but not on the grass right next to them, sort of a thing. Those are rules that just will achieve nothing, because if a dog's walking on the grass a centimetre away from a footpath, that's just a kind of a nothing rule at that point. In the case of how would people respond to my dog, normally they wouldn't, because my dog would be walking next to me under effective control. Yeah, that's all I can answer for that. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thumbs
I
up.
won't
Thank
hold you
you. So have I got Dennis here? Hello, Dennis. Come on up. Seen how this works?
Oh, I
Welcome.
certainly have. It's quite
Thank
an
you.
intimidating situation when you step in from the outside world.
Don't be.
And see all these faces.
We don't bite.
Me. That's okay. Well, the question is about biting, isn't it? I think that's central to everything that we're discussing for changes in rules, other than environmental aspects. Now, my name's Dennis Newberg. I'm a professional dog walker. I have been for 24 years. I set the very first professional dog walking service up in New Zealand and have been walking now dogs for that number of years, 60,000 dog walks later, still doing it. And have got quite a few thoughts on the aspect of our path going forward. I saw this time coming. I started in Europe, so in the 1990s my wife was running a dog walking service, and having lived in Amsterdam and outside Amsterdam for over 12 years, saw the difference in mentality towards dogs in the social environment of our domestic world. And one of the big aspects that we miss a little bit in New Zealand is socialisation at an early age. I'm not going to get into that. I think many people would have spoken about that in the past. I've seen several names up on the list that I know. I was a founding member of the Association of Professional Dog Trainers almost 20 years ago, and I know the other dog walking service that's there. It was really question time for me to you, rather than me stating, I think, what I would feel. And we're looking at things like licenses and permits for professional dog walkers. My big question around that is who polices the police? Who is the one that has the nous, the insight to judge a dog walker? When you've been doing it as long as I have, I can see it pretty quickly what goes right and what goes wrong, and where the factors are that are base important when you're setting up professional service, what to watch out for. Dog control officers, in my mind, are policing an area of extreme most of the time. The run-ins I've had with them have been very varied, and some not so great. Some I've been very, very disappointed in. But are they the ones that would assess a future dog walker, or even an existing one, would be my question. What will be the criteria that a dog walker would have to meet? Now, I don't expect you to list those criteria, but what would be the criteria of the judge passing decision on the dog walker? Is there any?
I think you'll appreciate that those of us at the table here, we're the elected members, we're not the staff and we're not the officers. I'm just not sure what the protocol here is, and I'm looking for a bit of guidance from my governance staff as to whether someone can answer that question from the staff today during this hearing, or whether we handle it in another way. I don't know what the process is. I'll tell you what, how about we just take your questions, please? If you keep firing your questions at us, I'm sure they're all relevant. And
I think that's a question that just needs to be considered for the likes of myself.
Sure.
To what are the criteria that should be considered when looking at professional dog walkers going forward?
So I'm mindful that we don't have a lot of time today.
No,
so
I don't have many to ask.
Fire ahead with your questions, and we've got
Madam Chair,
plenty of staff in the room that can answer.
Maybe it would be useful if the gentleman here proffered his thoughts on who might best do that, if not staff.
But not at this present time, because then we do get into a lengthy conversation, and
we've only got 2.5 minutes. We're running out of time.
But it would be somebody who has, and also the assessment takes time, and I know the council themselves in their staff allocation to tasks is time poor to the amount of people you can put on the streets for that sort of purpose. So really that was the extent. What is the experience on group control and the understanding of dog behaviour when you're taking out a large group? Can someone assess what that individual's ability is? The other is, which questions should be asked by the assessor to the prospective person walking the dogs. One other important one I think should be considered is transport methods. When it comes to transporting large groups of dogs, the transport of dogs is of base essence to setting up a good dog walk day. If dogs are travelling stress-free in a vehicle, low vision to one another, so you have facial confrontation of dogs, which is a big deal. Staring anybody in the face is a confrontational thing. Now, dogs are put into a van that's not theirs, ready to go somewhere. They're often excited, so it is a positive, but the transport moment that they're safely, independently transported, so that also when the dog walker arrives at the park, the van isn't opened and the dogs pour out because enthusiasm is there. That's one aspect that I think needs to be taken into account when assessing the professional dog walker. Safe, efficient, and transport which can be under control. And I'll give a quick example. I was once run into on an intersection with a van full of 8 dogs. My groups have been 8 to 10 over all these years, so they can, and I've never had an issue. I think the people at the Spencer Park Council can vouch for me, knowing me for years and working very closely with them, also with other Spencer Park and Bottle Lake aspects which go on there. But my dogs have never caused a problem. But in an accident situation, I happened to have all my dogs contained in the van and had to push the van off the intersection, but one of the back doors had come a little bit loose because someone hit me on the left front end, not giving way at a corner. But everybody in the car was safe. The dog's safer than I, even because they're in a separate kennelled situation within the van and travelling well. So I hope that that can be taken into consideration. So it's about movement of the dog, the space they have available, not too much is important, and the numbers on lead, off lead. We get back into who judges how many someone can take. A 55 kg woman cannot take, for example, 4 Rhodesian Ridgebacks. And if they are on lead, that's a real task to do. And also the breed criteria for a dog walker. So what can they walk and what breeds will they mix together? So we have safety on our streets, we want safety in our parks. if a dog walking service is going into a dog walk park or dog park, an off-leash area, which I never do, we're going to get bigger problems. And I know of incidents in Victoria Park of this happening, where there's too many numbers that are coming in and claiming it as their territory. I think these are points that have to be considered. And a little plus point for the dog walking in general is that, not to forget, that dog walking in its own right has environmental benefits. The vehicle takes out any number of dogs in a day which aren't going out in individual vehicles on that same given day. And the environmental aspect of well-socialized dogs benefits everybody. And I've seen many dogs come through my dog walking service that have become better for their owners to handle on the street. The recall has become better, the general social aspects and the body language to the dogs has become better. And I heard the bell ding.
Thank you very much for engaging with us, and we're really fortunate to have people like you with all this experience in the industry coming along and talking to us about this. We've got various staff in the room. We'll take those things on board. I do note that clause 13 in the bylaw itself has some specificity around the dog limit exemption and how they're going to be approaching that. But I thank you for raising those other matters. Unless there's any other questions from staff, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Denise.
No, you're welcome.
Appreciate
The
your
exemption
involvement.
point was, of course, something on my list as well, because everybody is going to be at a different stage, whether a new dog walker or an older dog walker. Bonding, and I'll leave it with that. Everybody, individually to groups, bonding with the dogs. I think that's got to be watched over. Bond with your dog, and therein lies the recall. Thank you for your
I'd bring
time.
my dog to work with me if I could. I love my dog.
I can bring my dog to work with me, and I'm very pleased to be able to do so. Thank you.
So do we have Victoria Smith on AV now? Thank you very much. Hello, Victoria. You've got our full attention. It looks like I've got Pam Richardson.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, hello, Victoria. You're good to go. You've got 5 minutes.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to start by saying that I totally understand why these new bylaws are being considered, and I agree with the new definition of effective control that has been put forward, and think that that is a reasonable approach to dog control. What I don't agree with is imposing more restrictions on where responsible dog owners can walk their well-behaved dogs. And unfortunately, I feel like some of the other rules are doing that. So to start with, I think the leashing dogs on footpaths rule is even a little bit ableist, because not everyone can walk off a path. And it prevents injured people from exercising their dogs. So, for example, if you've got a limp or you have any trouble walking, and dogs that aren't exercised off lead are more likely to be a nuisance and lead to problems like howling all day while people at work, or even being rescued or impounded because they're trying to escape. Dogs need that stimulation and exercise of walking off lead. So walking on the lead is not a substitute for walking off lead. But the leashing dogs on footpaths rule would remove many spots from the dog walker's map, so that off-lead walking becomes increasingly difficult, and it's harder to find spots to walk alone. So if you've got dogs that don't get on with other dogs, I mean, you may have good control over them and be able to pull them away from other dogs, but that just makes walks very stressful if there are lots of dogs forced into walking in fewer off-lead walking spots. As for the rule about the number of dogs, anyone with any number of dogs needs to be able to demonstrate that they can control their dogs. I think for some people, walking one dog on the lead is too much if that person is not able to control that dog. For other people, walking 5 dogs might be absolutely fine if those dogs are under control and that person is capable of controlling them. So actually, I feel like the number of dogs on the lead or off the lead doesn't actually make sense and won't help solve issues, because it's more the amount of dog that you've got. So if you've got 2 big dogs, they're much harder to control than 3 little dogs. combined with the dog's social and leash skills that matter. If you've got a dog that lunges at other dogs, that's a lot harder to control than a dog that just plods placidly by your side. So I think limiting the number of dogs that someone can walk oversimplifies and completely overlooks the actual issue that we have, which is that people need to be able to control their dogs. So I feel like, yeah, anyone with any number of dogs needs to be able to demonstrate that they can control their dogs. If they can't, they're in breach of the law. Another issue with the limiting number of dogs is that it unfairly impacts sled dog racing, which is a very small but very important community in New Zealand, where sled dogs are trained and under control, and but there can be a lot more than 3 dogs. There can be up to 10 dogs pulling a wheeled sled. I think that it is still important that we consider, even though it's only like a small number of people who do sled dog racing, I think it's still important to consider it because those dogs are trained to ignore obstacles and distractions that are in their path. I also think that the limiting number of dogs impacts the dog walkers who provide an important service for people who work full time. And the dog walkers actually help prevent dogs from being a nuisance because, as I said before, dogs that don't get enough exercise are a nuisance. And we end up with more problems. So to conclude, my main problems are with leashing dogs on footpaths. I think that is extremely detrimental to the dog walking community, particularly for people who just want a quiet walk with their dog on their own. There are not enough other opportunities to walk their dog off lead. And I also have a particular issue with limiting the number of dogs that people are allowed to walk. I think that there is a better way to deal with this issue, and that is by making sure that people are in control of the dogs that they have. And if they aren't, they need to get in trouble. Or perhaps they need some support to be able to join a dog club, do some dog training with their dog. A lot of people adopt a dog and don't have a clue how to train it, and they do need support to be able to do that. Okay, I will stop rambling now. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Not sure if you're aware, but there is a provision for an exemption to be applied for to walk more than the prescribed number of dogs. So there is a process that's proposed there in the bylaw. And the officers, the staff have taken on board a number of the comments that submitters like yourself have said in relation to some of the paths. And there's a very comprehensive staff report that's available online, and it's in our agenda at page 97 that addresses some of the issues that you have raised. There's no questions from my colleague, but thank you very much for engaging with this process. I can see you put a lot of time and thought into it, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anya, Gartner, this time round. Come on in. See, there's a timer with your clock on it up there. You've got about 5 minutes, give or take a little bit, so off you go.
Well, thank you. But firstly, I'd like to deviate from my original submission, which I wrote when I had just woken up, still in bed, and a friend had told me about the proposals. And some of them were just blatted off without any thought. So I do accept that where there's wildlife, dogs need to be on a leash, and we do need biodiversity. So that was reflected in some of my submissions. But today, what I mainly want to focus on is the requirement that dogs be on a leash on footpaths and track areas. And I'm primarily talking about the red zone. So I know of many people who regularly walk their dogs in there, and it's and also my demographic, older women. It's a part of our mental health and our social network. And absolutely love meeting regularly with our dogs and being able to just walk there with the dogs off the leash. And we all are very, very considerate of people that we meet. The dogs are under effective control. And groups of people will meet up with other groups of people or individuals. Just yesterday, I met a young woman who I'd met during my walks before, and she has a baby and a big hunt-away dog. And she said that she has to walk her dog and baby every day for her own mental health. And she gets in there, she lets the dog off, and she throws the ball for the dog as she's walking. Now that if she couldn't do that, if she had to keep the dog on a leash, that would be a completely different scenario for her. And that big active dog wouldn't be getting the exercise that it needs. So her life at home would be quite different, because she'd have a dog with boundless energy. She'd and that situation wouldn't be ameliorated by her being able to go out and take the dog and the baby for walks. And that's just one example of many people who go to that area and just see it as part of their wellness program. And there are tracks there which aren't maintained, the old roads, the old footpaths, and we all love making good use of those paths. It's at no cost to the council. We just wander around there, and it gives us a really expansive area where we can walk our dogs. And if there is the odd occasion at which someone's dog runs over to a bike or is aggressive, it's no reason to stop the enjoyment for all the rest of us. You know, people are being killed on our roads daily because of drink driving, but we're not going back to prohibition. So it's just, there are some undesired consequences as a result of anything, but we see them as the exception, and we're prepared to put up with them because the overall benefit that comes outweighs that. So my friends and I have been saying for years, aren't we blessed to have this in Christchurch? And it's not something that we've ignored at all. We love it, and it's going to be devastating if our lives with our dogs are seriously restricted, and we just have to keep the dog on a leash, and we'll go home and the dog will still have as much boundless energy as it did have. I would at least hope that we can stay on the ungraded tracks. If there's going to be one major track that's part of the development through the red zone, perhaps on that main thoroughfare and on the bridges, dogs could, if they had to be, on a leash. But there are a lot of other paths that aren't part of that main thoroughfare that I'd really like to be able to just have access to with our dogs.
Thank you very much, Anya. Just got spot on time. I'm not sure if you're aware that staff have actually responded to a number of these issues. So you're not alone in raising these issues about the red zone and some of the concerns about leashing on all paths. So the staff second report responding to some of the submissions is available on our website. It's on our agenda at about page 97, and a number of the issues that you've raised, and in fact they've relaxed some of the proposal, particularly around the red zone, with some of those roads that are no longer being used where they're lifting the leashing requirements. So thank you for taking the time to submit. Your concerns have been heard by us, by staff who are making some recommendations, and you've given us a lot to think about on some of these issues.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Anya.
Thank you.
Bono. Hello. How are you? Very well.
Yeah. Might be a bit of a different point of view that's going to blubber at you. So
that's why we're here.
So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Bono Beeler. I'm a BCCS qualified canine behaviour practitioner. I own and operate Speaking Dog Canine Services, and I'm co-founder and co-funder of Canine Neuropark Charity Trust alongside Elena Soltis from Animal Physio New Zealand and Animal Orthopedics Christchurch. I have submitted a detailed essay on the draft of the proposed dog control bylaw changes. I do hope you read it and took the scientific evidence I provided also into account. Today I want to emphasize on the following points. 1. I do think we need a good bylaw on leashing dogs. However, this should not be to the detriment of dogs and be against their ability to express prepared behaviours. Your draft lacks that at the moment. A dog on a 1.5 metre lead cannot express prepared behaviours. The long-term effects are musculoskeletal problems already underdiagnosed due to change and limited gait, and also so-called reactivity and aggressive behaviours. I have no idea from whom you have advice that long lines are dangerous. Remember, you can make a long line shorter, you cannot make a short lead longer. Number 2, short leads will bring out the tendencies in dogs to pull more, to try to go where they need to, and express their prepared behaviours to minimize uncertainty, to evidence their body moving in the environment. These actions are the foundations of the learning process in every animal, including human beings. The lack of interactions will have negative long-term effects, again leading to more reactive and aggressive behaviours. More importantly, it will lead to more owners using aversive tools like chokers, head halters, no-pull harnesses, and the likes to suppress pulling behaviours, again, resulting in negative long-term effects like musculoskeletal problems and reactivity and offensive behaviour. Number 3, how will you enforce the law? I question how you can. A law should be fair and enforceable to be effective. This law will reduce businesses like dog walking businesses and retailers making leads and harnesses who actually are supporting dog owners and their dogs, at the very least limiting their services. Again, I can only see negative effects on dogs and the effects of less safe human and dog interactions in the long term. More than 95% of Canine Neuropark membership applicants, remember we are a rehab facility, not a dog park. So more than 95% of applications are due to the owner stating, my dog is reactive. Imagine the influx we have when your new dog control law comes into effect, and we would lose the leases in the red zone land our rehab facilities are currently on. A dog control bylaw should state that dogs must be put on a lead, preferably attached to the back of a well-fitting H-shaped harness when other dogs are in the vicinity on a lead. Or, as your law states, dogs should be leashed on busy shared paths with many different movements like people, bikes, scooters, strollers, kids, etc. And they should be leashed around estuaries and other wildlife breeding spots, which I actually agree dogs shouldn't really be allowed in because they will naturally hunt and flush animals. And the law should be controllable and enforceable. How will you have the people power to enforce the law? And lastly, let's be very clear. A social dog is not a forever puppy that gets on with every dog, human or animal. A social dog is first a healthy dog who can communicate intentions well. The dog can't do that by being pushed in a corner, nor then being tethered on a short lead. In a corner or on a short lead, there is only one behaviour option, and that's to defend. I thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please do ask.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No. Oh, Councillor Kewen.
Yeah, I actually, when the lady said before that hunter base, for example, you know, it needs to run after a ball and stuff like that. Otherwise, they, you know, are not exercised enough. That just gets me going. In the end of the day, it's the wrong exercise, right? What is the summate made for? Yeah, yeah. So you want to enact the prepared behavior, and first and foremost, it's a predator. What does a predator do? You need to go along what they naturally do, and you can do that safely like I do on long lines. I go through the red zone and I have them on long lines and I track with them and stuff like that. It's quite safe. My problem is when dogs run up to me, right? That's the problem I have. So other people think they then yell at me and say my dog is fine. You do not ever know whether the other dog is fine or whether your dog is ever going to be fine. So it's what you do with each breed. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We're
you.
on time. Thank you. Thank you. So lastly today we've got Colleen and Ben waiting patiently. Thank you. You've seen how this operates, so when you're ready, thank you.
Yes. I'm sorry. Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm called Colleen Philippaho and I'm heading over to Ben now.
Tēnā koutou, my name is Ben Jason. We are representing Sustainable Otutahi Christchurch. We wanted to generally issue support for today's dog control policy, and we just have a few notes to add, and I'll pass back to Colleen.
I'd like to explain more about our assertion in paragraph 4 of our written submission that you could and should be or have been more effectively and consistently enforcing the rules you already have before looking to expand on them. Our assertion is based in part on my experience managing a conservation reserve on the Lower Heathcote on behalf of Forest and Bird for 5 years. It was in a designated dogs on lead conservation zone. After we lobbied council, there were signs placed at each end of the riverside track to tell people this. However, most people walked through with their dogs off lead. Over the 5 years, I and other volunteers engaged in many conversations with these people, trying to explain the purpose and need for the on-lead rule. We got a wide range of responses and excuses, from the extremely aggressive to the very pleasant. But the result after 5 years of all our effort was no observable change. When I asked for help through this time from council staff, the response was, we prefer the educational approach. But I saw no significant on-site educational approach by anybody from the council. At the end of the 5 years, I was exhausted and had given up. There were people going through whom I talked with at the beginning of the 5 years who now did not even pretend to comply, as they had sometimes done, for example, by putting their dog on lead until they got past our group or around the corner where they thought we couldn't see them. I firmly believe, as do others, that 1, 2, or a few fines, or even the threat of fines from someone with authority, would have significantly shifted behaviour in a way our conversations could not. To you, Ben.
And in addition to Colleen's enforcement notes, we wanted to acknowledge that today is about the dog policy, but we wanted to highlight a gap, which is that Christchurch City Council doesn't have any management approach for cats. So this is also quite important. Cats have a significant impact on native wildlife, birds, lizards, threatened species. We know that cats are more difficult to manage when we don't know if some of them aren't microchipped. There is no current national legislation for cat management, but other cities in New Zealand offer solutions that we can look to for examples. Wellington City Council and Selwyn District Council, both and others require microchipping and registration. Palmerston North, Whangarei, and others require desexing, exceptions for breeders. And some parts of Australia have introduced curfews for cats. And today we just wanted to highlight that gap and encourage the council to take a look at it, start the conversation with the community. And even small steps like more education and monitoring can go a long way. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for raising those issues. You're not the only ones that have raised both of those today. The matter that's before us at the panel is about the regulation rather than the operational matters in relation to enforcement, but we've heard you loud and clear and a number of people have raised that. So as councillors, will we certainly be looking at the resources that are available and the money that's on budget as to how many enforcement officers we do have when the next annual plan round comes along. And my colleague Councillor Kewen over here's got a question, I think.
Yes, so cats has come up a few times today. So, and obviously the looking at this policy to solve two problems. One is dogs either rushing or attacking people or other dogs, and then the other side's wildlife. And with the growth of the work that you guys do, can we, in all seriousness, have an effective policy around wildlife for dogs if we don't have one for cats? Is it just pointless?
No, I
Or
think
does it go is only a step, but it's not a complete circle?
I like your last response. Yeah, it's a step. But yeah, we're just encouraging to look at both.
But to have the complete circle, you need both, just like the predator-free on the BP. That you know, when you got pigs and goats and rats and everything running through your breeding program, it's not going to go that well.
we are in an urban environment, you know, and I was at a presentation from Jason Roberts, one of your council rangers, about the penguin nesting sites along the coastal pathway. Middle of the night, he's catching photos of cats, you know. It's like it's all very well for the dog owners who go past to have their dogs on lead, but if the cats are coming through in the middle of the night, so it is. They both have to be done for the sake of the wildlife, don't they?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time's up. Thank you. Nice to see you. So that's the end of our submitters today, everybody. So we're going to adjourn until 9:30 tomorrow on Thursday, the 13th of March. Thank you very much.